Hey swashbucklers, our friends and Now Forget That metal swashbuckling storytelling band from Buenos Aires presents their new single, The Black Corsair. It's the opening track on their upcoming album based on the swashbuckling classic pirate novel by Emilio Salgari. Get the digital download of The Black Corsair now at underthecrossbones.com/corsair. Raise the sails! Turn it up, swashbucklers! You're listening to Under the Crossbones, episode number 32. My name is Phil Johnson. I'm your host for the show. Thank you for tuning in. It's like like you had to turn a dial or something to get this. Thank you for downloading in. Thank you for listening. How about that? Thank you for downloading. Thank you for listening. Thank you for telling your friends and leaving reviews and all that kind of great stuff that you do because you're a good person. Today, number 32, episode number 32, fun fact about 32, it is the average number of pages in a comic book, not counting the covers, which is perfect because my guest on the show today is Brad Perri, and he's the creator of Pirate Mike, Maladjusted Suburbanite, which is a great little comic strip that I've been enjoying reading. It's very cool, and if you want to find that, it's at piratemicecomics.com, and so today we're going to dig into being a comic artist, which is really, I love comic art. I love animation art and that kind of stuff. I'm not like a comic book guy like DC, Marvel. I don't really care that much about superheroes. What I enjoy is the simplicity of the line and how just a few lines can be used to elicit emotion and intent and plot and all sorts of great stuff. And that's what I find really, really intriguing about this stuff. And so we're going to get deep into character development and all sorts of great stuff in the Pirate Mike comics. So I know you're really going to enjoy this episode. I think it's a great interview, and you're going to have a good time. So I am. You might be wondering, where are the normal dulcet radio tones of the previous episodes? Well, here's the thing. I'm coming to you today from Coralville, Iowa. I'm on the road. I actually have a couple days off here, and I am in a hotel. And I realized when I got to St. Louis last weekend that I forgot to pack my nice microphone, the microphone that I do podcasty stuff with. And fortunately, I have a little Samson Go mic that I keep in my laptop bag, and that is what I'm using right now. So it's a sort of a different kind of mic. It doesn't sound nearly as good, but I'm going to do the best I can. So the next couple episodes are going to be a little reverby and a little lower quality than you might expect, but only on the parts where I'm yakking at the beginning and the middle. The interviews, those will sound great. Because those were pre-recorded in my studio at home. So, yes, I am in Coralville, Iowa, out in the midst of the cornfields. And I was in Fairview Heights, Illinois over the weekend playing at the Hey Guys Comedy Club featuring for Kevin Farley. And that is Chris Farley's brother. Now, that's cool, right? He was very funny. We had a great time together. Great shows. Almost all the shows, all three shows were nearly sold out. So that was super fantastic. And it was a little disconcerting because Kevin Farley looks almost exactly like Chris Farley. They could be twins. They're only a year apart, and they could be twins. And when you know the people in a family like really well, you start to notice like their mannerisms are the same and things like that. And he would do things like Kevin would just do something like hitch up his pants or brush the hair away from his forehead, and it looked just like his brother Chris. And it was a little bit creepy at times, I have to admit. But very great guy. We had a wonderful time together. He's very funny. So definitely check out Kevin Farley. He's also got a documentary out about his brother called I Am Chris Farley that I guess showed on Spike, and there are now DVDs available and things like that. So go Google I Am Chris Farley documentary and check that out because it's really cool. So yesterday, because yesterday, what day is it? Over the week, Sunday. Let's call it Sunday because that's when it was. Sunday, I had a day off. I had a little bit lengthier drive to drive from St. Louis out here to Coralville, Iowa. And so I made some stops along the way because when I have a day off, I like to make some stops, see some historical stuff because there's way older stuff here in the Midwest than there is back in California where I'm from. So I made a stop. My first stop was in Defiance, Missouri at the Daniel Boone House. And this is the house that Daniel Boone, that guy with the Hunty, Revolutionary War guy thing, that guy, Daniel Boone, this was the house that he lived in for the last few years of his life. Really nice place, bigger than my house, and they built it. So good for them. And a couple things I learned. The elder Daniel Boone looked a lot like Christopher Walken, according to the portrait in the house. And so if Christopher Walken is looking for another gig, the Daniel Boone story, at least the elder part of it, would be a great way to go. Now, here's the funny thing. It was kind of a drizzly, cloudy day, and there wasn't very many people at the Daniel Boone house. And so I paid my $7 for the tour of the house. And I was the only one on the tour. And the tour guide, I got a private tour of the Daniel Boone house. And the girl who took me around was wonderful. She was great, but it was a little bit strange because she was still doing the spiel, like she stuck to the script and still stood like 10 feet away from me as if she were talking to to a large group of people. Whereas we could have just like walked and talked like, here, look at this thing, but no, she went through the whole spiel. It was an hour tour and she kept asking if I had any questions. And I'm like, I'm not good at asking questions on a tour like that. I'm usually the guy that just stands in the back and listens. And I didn't have any questions because it was interesting, but it was a house full of old furniture. And I asked a couple questions here and there, but so it was a little bit weird. I'm sure it was awkward for her too. I've done gigs for small amounts of people. The smallest gig I ever did was for 2 people at a casino in Oregon. And 2 people who had a wonderful time and then did not buy anything from my merch table at the end. But they told me they had a wonderful time. So I will have to take their word for it. But understanding the little gigs like that, the little audience is hard. But she did not break script once. So good for her. She did a good job. That was the Daniel Boone house. So, and then as I was driving, I noticed I was passing through Hannibal, Missouri, which is Mark Twain's hometown. And so I thought, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to see some Mark Twain stuff. So I drove down to the main street there, and you can see Mark Twain's childhood home. And there's a whole main street just full of old, like 1800s buildings and things like that. And much like every small town, everything was closed after 4 o'clock, and I was there at 5. So I didn't get to go in anywhere, but I did see lots of cool old buildings. And so many of them must have been owned by Mark Twain because his name is on everything. That's a joke. I know. But it's pretty touristy. It really is. But it was fun. And I went down to the Mississippi River. It's like right down the street, and I stood on the banks, and it was all misty and cloudy, and it was pretty cool looking. I'll post some pictures in the show notes if you want to check it out. That's underthecrossbones.com/032. And then my last stop was at the Mark Twain Casino, which is in LaGrange, Missouri. And it was not because I was going to gamble, but because I was hungry and hadn't eaten in about 8 hours. So I stopped into the Mark Twain Casino, which Mark Twain was a gambler. Mark Twain was a poker player. Ironically, not a single poker table in this casino. I'm pretty sure Mark Twain was not a slots player. Probably not a Pai Gow player, as far as I know. But I did have some lovely fried chicken and baked potato and some soup and some salad, and it was super cheap, and that was awesome. And now here I am in Coralville, Iowa with a couple days off. Show's coming up, though. This Wednesday, March the 16th, I'll be at the Diamond Joe Casino in Dubuque, Iowa. March the 17th, that's Thursday, I'll be at the Prairie Meadows Casino in Altoona, Iowa. March 18th and 19th, I will be at Penguins Comedy Club in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And then next week, March 25th and 26th, I will be headlining Laugh Lines in Vancouver, Canada. And then it's back to California for some shows. April 1st, I'll be headlining a Bluefin Billiards in Monterey, California. And April 2nd, I will be headlining a giant show at the AppCal Winery in Madera, California. If you want to get any of my tour dates and stuff, just go to underthecrossbones.com and click on the tour dates button, and it'll be all good. All right, so how about we get into our interview with Brad Perri? We're talking comics today, friends. Dig it. Here it goes. Brad Perri. Fan of comic art. I really like that. I'm a huge animation guy, but what always gets me about animation is the still images, the individual images that bring so much life into a few simple shapes and things like that. So how did you get started as a cartoonist?
God, well, that's a really good question. I think when you're in the big sense, and I'm a little kid, I'm watching cartoons.
Okay.
And one of them was those old 1966 Marvel superhero cartoons.
Oh.
Have you ever seen those?
I have, yeah.
Oh my God! Well, I loved them, and later on, I found out that they really, literally were just stills of the comic. They dragged them across the screen; they didn't move at all. And right. And I still love them. I own all of them on DVD, of course, pirated. But really, with comics, what happened? So my dad knew that I liked Iron Man, so he bought me an Iron Man comic book, which was number 98. He insists that the first comic book he bought me was a Batman comic book, and he might be right. But the one that I really remember is Iron Man.
Okay.
And then years later, my cousin Tom really enjoyed comic strips, and I would read the local paper comic strips, which in my town, I grew up in Des Plaines, which is right outside of Chicago. They did the Daily Herald. We didn't get the Tribune. We got the Suburban paper. And the Daily Herald, and they did their comics like the original comic books. They had their comic strips bound up as a comic book for the weekend. Yeah. So for me, that was a natural progression. I never actually read them on the daily basis. I read them on Sundays in that comic book format.
Oh, that's neat. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then from there, my cousin and I, Garfield came out. He started drawing, and so I started drawing. We started drawing our own comic strips. And over the years, off and on, I've been doodling and drawing and coming up with a strip and then not doing anything. I finally submitted a set of strips in 2005 to a syndicate. Got rejected, of course, which is standard. And has nothing to do with me. And then went into a coma for a few years of cartooning. And then in 2012, actually, God bless my wife. She she said she was tired of seeing me just sitting around doodling all these strips. So she bought me one of those, memberships on the Comic Sherpa site.
Oh, nice.
It kind of forced me to, do it on a more regular basis and start showing it to people, and it's really been a great help. So, so that's kind of the genesis of it.
That's great. And so Comic Sherpa, explain that site. What's that all about?
Comic Sherpa is the pay-to-play portion of the Go Comics site. If you, the old, syndicates, Universal Press, United Features, I think it was, they merged, and they have an online presence called gocomics.com, which is kind of a compilation of all the mainstream comics, most of them, with the exception of some, King Features strips, because King Features runs its own on-site, online service. And so if you're online syndicated or syndicated in print, they put you on the main gocomics.com page. But for the low price of $9.99 a month, you can take up space on what they call the Comics Sherpa site, which is kind of like their, like I said, it's the pay-to-play site. Okay. So I show up on there with plenty of other people. Occasionally, folks get picked up from the Comic Sherpa site and put on the main site. I have not been so fortunate, but there are plenty of people who have been. And it's a great place to really meet people who aren't necessarily thinking about syndication or doing it professionally, but just love cartooning. Interesting. Yeah, really good group.
So then let's talk a little Pirate Mike, Maladjusted Suburbanite, which is such a great name just to start with. But where did the genesis for that particular strip come from?
I was at the time I was still practicing law. I was a lawyer for about 10 years, and one morning I know, believe me. And I've moved on. I'm writing online copy.
Great.
That's what I do is I write. And guess who I write it for? Lawyers. So all the law stuff comes in handy. But one morning I was getting ready, and I was doing a previous strip at the time, and I had developed a really good case of tendinitis. And so I had to lay off for a little bit. And that morning I was putting on my tie, and I just had this little vision of this pirate talking about, how it was time to do battle. And finally it pans back and he's standing on a ladder, and his wife says, just clean the gutters. And for some reason, and that turned into a strip. I have a couple of variations on that I've actually used, but, and it just kind of stuck with me, but I never did anything with it. But I like the idea of a little pirate, kind of cleaning the gutters. I don't know why. Yeah. So that's and where he came from larger than that, I really don't know. He just kind of popped into my head.
Were you a pirate guy before?
No, isn't that weird? You would think that I would be. I think there's always that sense in general. It's kind of like enjoying dogs or something. Oh yeah, sure, adventure. You like Pirates of the Caribbean, and you like Pittsburgh Pirates, and you like the general idea of pirates. It's kind of you're gonna go live on your own terms type thing, without any of the nasty stuff that actual pirates really do.
Right.
Yeah, that's always the thing I try to tell people. Well, you understand, of course, that Pirate Mike is the popularized version of a pirate, and not an actual, but that's some people don't. They don't get it.
Right.
But yeah, so that's kind of just, I don't know why, but some reason a pirate stuck into my head.
That's interesting. And I think after reading a bunch of your strips, I think it really almost helps appeal to a more mainstream audience. Like if you'd been a diehard pirate guy since being a kid, it probably might have been a little bit too inside for mainstream appeal.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I read now, of course, I try to read as much pirate stuff as I can. I have, a pirate, believe it or not, there are pirate dictionaries.
Sure.
There are pirate books on phrases, and, I go through them, and mostly what I get from is not so much the language, but but ideas of how Pirate Mike thinks, kind of what his attitudes are on things.
Uh-huh.
And I agree with you. I think for me, I'm not so much, because I think you have that a lot today with a lot of gaming strips, which the great thing about online comics is that you can target those kind of niche audiences.
Sure.
Okay, so I don't mean to poo-poo that. But I can't get into a lot of the gaming strip comics, because you got to really be a gamer to really get into them. But I agree with you. I think that's something I try with my strip, is to keep it more in the lines of, something that people can access, that makes it accessible to them and isn't something completely alien.
Right. Yeah. And it's always a good idea to do that. I mean, this show is, if not a niche marketed type of show, but that's why I play some music and do some comedy, keep it open like that, and talk to people who do, mostly I like to talk to people about whatever it is they do, and pirates is just an excuse to do that.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
So where did the name come from? How did you end up naming him Mike?
Oh boy. That's another one. One day he kind of came back into my head because I was doodling and I made a mistake in my notebook on something, and I every now and then, for fun and just for a game to see what happens, you try to make a mistake into something actually. So it's not a mistake anymore. And so I did that, and it started out as the little sword. Then I had the little hand. Then I had this little pirate holding the sword. I'm like, oh, look at that. And I really didn't want to call him pirate, whatever it was. I wanted to call him a marauder, or a raider or something. But then I thought, no one's going to know what the heck that is. Because he really started out, and Marauder Mike, so it really started out I have a thing for alliteration, even ridiculously bad alliteration. I just love alliteration. And so he became all these things, blank Mike, blank Mike, blank Mike. He was Maladjusted Mike, American Pirate. And it just kept coming back to, well, when a friend of mine would bring their kid over, who is he? Oh, he's Pirate Mike. And that was really easy. Anything longer than that, the kid's 6 years old and he's looking at you going, what are you talking about?
Sure.
They're bored. And then the Maladjusted Suburbanite thing is just kind of the tagline, because I think these days it's so hard to get into some strips simply because they're so small, literally in the newspaper. And the one thing also is people don't have the time to invest in getting to know a character anymore, or at least they don't take it. So what I wanted people to do, once you see that, because there are plenty of very good strips out there that do not have descriptive titles. They have very esoteric titles that tell you nothing about the strip.
Sure.
And for me, I felt I wanted something that once you look at the title, you know what it's about. Boom, you can go right into the strip. There's no hesitation there.
That makes sense. We experience the same thing in the music industry these days, in that nobody. I remember back to when I, heavily into bands as a teenager. I knew all their names. I knew what kind of gear they played. I knew who their sponsors were. And now even I don't have that kind of time to get into a band that quickly, just because there's so much stuff out there. And I imagine with the way that comics have exploded online, that absolutely has to be a problem.
It really, and it's a good problem to have in some respects. I wouldn't exist without it. I think that's why one of the many reasons I think we have a lot of great stuff going on in comics is because, and I'm sure it's in music too, and it's a double-edged sword because you have the same, for the people who really make their living at it, it's the same monetization problems.
Right.
How do I actually get paid for this? But for me, it's a real benefit because it's given me the courage and the ability to say, just put something up.
Right.
Just put something up and meet other people and enjoy comics. And it's given me a whole new way of enjoying something that I have enjoyed all my life. And I really love making them. And I really love the people who I interact with. Is the interaction is why you do it. So you can talk about comics with other people. It's very rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. That's always a nice part of it, to be able to find other people that are of like mind. You find your little pot of people.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a big thing. And the fact that, and a lot of times it's incredible. Even you realize just how incredible that is, that there's somebody out there who likes something that you do. It's pretty crazy. I do the comic conventions, and what I did last year, I'm going to do again this year, is I print out, the last year's worth of Pirate Mics, and I put them in comic book format.
Okay.
I put them like 4 to a page. And it's great because people who I've never met will be coming through a comic book convention, and they actually will buy copies of Pirate Mic. And it's a really wonderful thing. And I'll tell you, when I first started with Pirate Mic, I wanted to make it a little more oriented towards an older audience. I don't want to say an adult audience because it makes it sound like it's pornographic. A mature audience. We all know what that means.
Right.
But for people who can aren't necessarily under 18. And I was lucky because I didn't really have anything like that on a hunch. I just kind of changed a few things before I put it in a comic book form, because those are the people who react to it the best. Are really the little kids.
Interesting.
And I know. Well, it kind of, because the premise of the strip to me is more of a middle-aged thing.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, look, this is reality. This is me living my life, coming to terms with what are your dreams, what is reality, and how do you move forward?
Right.
But little kids, they love Pirate Mic is just one big temper tantrum.
Right.
So they love it. And then the parents still read it, and they like it for the themes and stuff. So I've had a lot of good response from families that they like it, and at the same time they're relieved that they can have something that they can read with their kids.
Sure,
so it's nice.
There's very little actual violence, and Pirate Mic never gets naked. So
not yet. It's funny you say that. I do have one strip in mind where he streaks through the living room. And the boy, his son, says something behind him to the effect of, "This is going to be years of therapy," and I haven't really used it yet because it doesn't hit right for me, and I don't know if I ever will. But the strategic use of cartoon nudity, that's a problematic thing, and especially when you're talking, because I think even Calvin at some points, and Calvin and Hobbes, but it's when he's coming out of the bathtub and stuff, but it's. It's one of those things that's like you said, that's the first, is there nudity in it? And it's like, well, no. I do have one scene where Pirate Mic has a towel around his waist, but that's it. That's as bad as it gets.
I was actually really surprised a few months ago. I was watching one of the new Disney shorts, and Mickey Mouse and I think Donald both show up naked and one point. And then
I've been watching those too.
Yeah. And I was shocked. I was like, wow, they actually went there with it.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that have you ever watched the old black and white Mickey Mouse cartoons?
Oh yeah, all of them. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, I own those on DVD and I just love them. I find the new ones so much in that spirit.
Yep.
And I think that they're in the right tone that you can get away with it, where it seems they've pulled it off, because it's still in that sense, like if you have a child or a niece or a nephew and you just say the word "but" and they giggle for hours. Okay. And I think that's basically what happens when Mickey Mouse and Donald are running around naked. It's the cartoon equivalent of saying "but" in front of your niece or nephew, and they just start giggling.
Right.
And then they start saying "but," and then their parents want to kill you. But yeah.
Yeah, it's so cartoonish that, I mean, I was certainly not shocked on any sort of moral level. I
I used to sell porn for a living, so I can't be.
Oh,
but,
good for you.
Yeah,
well, there you go.
But I was just surprised that Disney actually, went in that direction. I thought it was interesting and edgy of them.
Well, because they actually, I think somewhere someone realized that they had a major cartoon property on their hands that they're not making any money with for no good reason. So let's make them a cartoon character again instead of just this tasteless icon, or bland icon. And those new ones work. I really enjoy them.
Yeah, I think they're great too. I really do. Yeah. So one of the things I noticed looking through your strips last night was that Pirate Mike tends to react to the news a lot and has a vendetta against TV personalities, which frankly I absolutely agree with. But how does that manifest? I imagine that's a view of your own.
Yeah, it's one of those things. There's a great little sequence in Peanuts where Sally is sitting. Peanuts does that. Charlie Brown and really even Calvin and Hobbes, they're all sitting in front of the TV set and talking back to it. And one of my favorites is Sally is sitting in front of the TV and the TV says, something along the lines of now it's time for, and Sally turns the channel with the remote and she says, no, it's not. And so, it's one of those things where believe me, I enjoy my share of television as much as the next person. I mean, I love baseball. I love movies right now. I love The Flash on TV. And there's all kinds of stuff that my wife, who's a real film buff, she finds all kinds of great stuff. And, Mad Men, I mean, I watched that religiously. But, like everything, it's a double-edged sword. There's always a good and a bad with it. And I'm not saying anything novel here. It's on the verge of being it might be cliche, but I go with it anyway because I enjoy it. But man, you sit there and you listen to the news and you're just like, I'm just getting sold crap.
Right. I
mean, I'm basically being worked up into a lather by people who are hawking sales of sensationalist garbage. And to be, you talk about not wanting to be a prude. This is where I come into being a prude, where it's like, it's not good for us. This is not good for me. It's not good for me. It's not good for, the society. It's like sitting down in front of a television for too long. It's like eating one Snickers bar is good, I like to say, but a whole bag of them at once is a bad idea.
It's still good. It's just a bad idea.
Yeah, it's just a bad idea. Exactly. It's not that I don't enjoy it. Okay. It's just that, my body's going to stop working. And so it's a practical matter. And so I try to take a bit of a practical matter with it. But, God, I mean, just the idea there, I think part of Mike's frustration, and I don't know how much of this comes from me, but it's that frustration I think that a lot of people have in general with the idea that, God, everything is so much out of your control.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And TV is supposed to be this escape, and instead it's just, I don't know, it's kind of just telling me more and more how little control I have in anything. And it's this, what do they call it? Taught dependence, learned dependence, or learned helplessness.
Sure, right.
And so I think there's an element that Mike reacts to in that, because I think he feels helpless in a lot of areas in his life. So TV, though, and you know what? Every strip I do, Phil, has a TV in it for some inexplicable reason. TV always shows up. And I was saying to somebody else the other day online, my TVs are always assholes.
Yes, absolutely.
They are just, my TVs are unpleasant people. They're nasty, brutish, and short.
Right. One of the things that I found kind of interesting about it, and this I think definitely is a little inside baseball in the pirate scene, but he seems to be very mad that TV news is all about fear mongering.
Yeah. When
that was pretty much a pirate stock and trade, was fear mongering.
That's interesting. I've never thought of it that way. You're right. Yeah. I'm still, one of the things that's frustrating about only doing a strip really once a week, and I'm trying to do the strip more, like 2 or 3 times a week, is I have a lot of themes that are at this point only vaguely outlined or gestured at. And a lot of them I haven't developed because I don't even understand them yet. Really with every strip, I'm just, you're trying, geez, I hope somebody likes this.
Yeah.
And I get a chuckle out of it. You show it to your wife. The wife gets a chuckle. Good. Let's run with it. And I think that's a really good point. I think there's one strip I did where Mike is talking about being a new kind of pirate dedicated to, the strong should help the weak, the rich should help the poor, the healthy should care for the sick. And, there's a joke newspaper headline that he's won the Pulitzer Prize. He did it for the children. Oh, yeah. And then the last frame is the kid saying, so you're going to give all this stuff you stole back. And he's like, I'm not here to talk about the past.
Yeah, right.
And I think somebody else pointed out that Mike's a real hypocrite. And I think in the sense that we're all hypocrites, I think, not to give too pat of a response, there is a hypocrisy to Mike, and it's funny. And I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that. That's a great theme. You're right, because that's something I think that Mike really struggles with. As he's trying to fit in, he has these bouts of temper where he knows he can just destroy everything. Maybe he's envious. He's envious.
I kind of read it as, first of all, I think the hypocrisy is a very human kind of hypocrisy. I don't think anybody would react any differently to the line about giving all the treasure back that he'd stolen. Yeah, but it kind of struck me like even he was not powerful enough to outdo the TV news. Even a pirate is going to be taken down by the fear mongering, like with the wonder medicine turning grannies into zombies, and he just goes, "I knew it!" Like he can't stand up to it,
Yeah, he's into it. Well, that's. I think there's one thing that I'll say is that there's a complicity. I think that maybe is one theme that I'm interested in, is that the idea, there's the one notion, and I think they are different lines of thinking I can ideally someday pursue. One of them, of course, is the idea that the TV is something to resist, or whatever the TV that it represents is something to be resisted, and it's that ferocity of a pirate that allows you to resist it. The pirate can recognize, it takes one to know one, and the pirate can recognize when there's, baloney being thrown at them. So you need that ferocity. But there's also, oddly enough, with TV and news and things like that, with pop culture, there's a complicity that we have as viewers, I think, and readers in our own feelings of helplessness. And I don't know how to articulate it better than that. And it's interesting, is that's what I use the comic strip for. People would say, well, what do you think about something like this? I'm like, well, here's what I think about, and I draw a picture of a little pirate talking to a TV set, and then they want me to explain that, and I'm like, well, okay, I can't. I mean, that is it,
right?
And when they say, it speaks for itself, I'm like, if you have a thought about something, what does it look like? Some people are really good at writing expository essays. Some people are really good at extemporaneous speeches. I doodle, so that would be my response, and then what that means is something that I sort out by doodling a lot, and I would like to do a lot more doodling than I do.
Yes, that's great. That's great. So, do the other characters? I'm interested in how much of a backstory there is. Do the other characters have names and things like that?
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet?
Yeah, right now they don't. I take that back. The wife and the son don't, and I don't know why. I've tried to come up with names for them. I have had a number of ideas, and I don't use any because I don't like them. And then I think, it's just they're at it. They're what is it? Avatar. Avatar. God, thanks. Avatar. They're avatars. And I think that only people, quote unquote, who get names in the strip are people like Cowboy Bill, Astronaut Al, Nancy, Ninja Nancy. It's that shorthand to let the reader know what they are,
right? And
to kind of import the cultural, idea of what a cowboy is like or what an astronaut is like into the strip, so that it's like a quick character understanding,
right? For
people, it's a shorthand. So yeah, that's interesting. I've wondered about that, and I don't know. Even the dog, for Pete's sake, the dog has a name. What is it? Patch the puppy pirate.
Okay.
The fish has a name. Finn. Okay, the fish has a name. The mother-in-law does have a name. She's Judy. And I think she's the only human, other than the, characters, really that has a name. I'm thinking about the wife and son, and it's not purposeful right now. And I'm sure some psychological critic would say, well, you see, this is a deep-seated issue with reflecting these terrible tensions within his own. it's like, well, no, maybe it is. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is I just haven't come up with names for them yet.
Right.
I haven't come up with any ones that I like. So who knows? Maybe they'll remain nameless forever, and I have no idea.
It's sort of an interesting tactic because I mean the wife and son characters are very strong and sell themselves just as a personality anyway. And when you were talking about how kids are into the comic, I was actually thinking, I wonder if they actually identify with the son character a lot more than the pirate character from their point of view.
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't asked any of them. The kid is like the rest of the strip, and it's, again, the problem of only doing it once a week. You realize the importance of doing a daily strip because you just have it's like baseball. You only get better at it by doing it all the time.
Sure.
And so right now, the frustration of doing a strip once a week or even just 3 times a week is it takes a lot longer to work out these themes and develop the characters, because I can't sit back and just think of the character and then they spring from my mind fully formed onto the paper. I have to work it out by literally doodling it and drawing the comic. And so the son is actually where you see this most readily. I mean, he's gone through a number of phases. He's been thin, fat, short, tall, skinny. He's had spiky hair. He's had different colored hair. He's had, now he's in a phase where I have him in like a combed little like Tintin swoosh.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, a little flip on the flip hairstyle. And now he's kind of articulate and overly intelligent almost compared to other times in the strip earlier where he's been a juvenile delinquent.
Right.
So I don't know. I haven't. Most of the kids, what they react to that I can tell is they like the colors and they like when Pirate Mike is angry.
Okay.
So if he's got a really big mouth and he's screaming like Sarge out of Beetle Bailey, they really like that.
Yeah, it's that kind of Sarge character or Hagar the Horrible or even Donald Duck.
Definitely.
Thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the characters I look to when I'm thinking. And of course, he has a red beard, so does Hagar, and he's a pirate, and Hagar's a Viking. So, it's a Hagar the Horrible ripoff. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you about that. I can't. I usually in those situations, when I'm dealing with someone who's saying, I had one person say that it's a Calvin and Hobbes ripoff because the little boy had spiky hair at one point. Oh. Right. Yeah. And you're dealing. The problem you're dealing with is a readership that really is only familiar with one strip now.
Right.
They don't have a background. They don't know Pogo. They don't know Little Abner. They don't know Crazy Cat. They don't know Pop. They don't even know Popeye was a comic strip.
Right.
So the kids react to Pirate Mike and Hagar and Sarge. I mean, I love Sarge. I heard him described one time as somehow the cosmic howl of anguish. And I thought that was a great description. I also love Broomhilda, the very early Broomhilda.
Sure.
Where she's drinking beer and smoking cigars and getting insulted by Grulber. And I had somebody tried to put me down one time by saying, "Oh, your strip reminds me of Broomhilda or Hagar," and I thought, I don't know how to break it to you, man, but that is kind of the aesthetic I'm aiming for here.
Sure,
So I'm kind of happy about that, but, obviously I wish they had liked it, but what are you going to do? But yeah, those are Hagar I look to, and I like to think, the one thing that I've always wondered about Hagar, maybe this is where Mike comes from, is I've never liked the fact that Hagar is actually in the past or in a Viking town.
Right.
I've actually, oddly enough, surprise, surprise, I want him in the suburbs. So voila, big surprise. Pirate Mike is out there. And why Mike is a pirate, I really don't know.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I really, again, that'd be one of those things you have to scan my brain for. But it's worked out well because it's really allowed me to develop that kind of Sarge-esque character who's just in a constant state of frustration and rage.
Right, right.
And it comedically is very funny.
Yeah, and I think any comparisons that are made, like I absolutely didn't even think of Hagar the Horrible until we were just talking about that particular
I'm going to quote you.
Character type, yeah. Because Hagar was always in his historically correct time period, right. So I hadn't even made the connection really until you brought it up. There's only so many character archetypes out there, especially in something that has to be as for lack of a better term, as aesthetically simplified as a 4-panel comic strip. You can't. It's not a Tarantino film. You can't go that deep with the characters.
Correct. I totally agree. And before I just lose this train, because you bring up a real key point to my thinking on comic strips. This is also why it's frustrating to only do one a week, because I'm learning the vocabulary, and you learn the vocabulary. Now you don't know how this works. I'm guessing this works with music or with anybody else.
Sure.
You learn by copying. You learn the vocabulary over a period of time, and you learn it by using it.
Right.
And the more you use the vocabulary, and so the vocabulary of comics, like you're pointing out, comics now compared to say, when Harriman was drawing Crazy Cat, for instance. Even by then, a lot of the things have been settled. But a lot of the tropes and the practices of comics at the moment, especially for newspaper strips, are pretty well settled.
Right.
So the question is now, does something happen after a while if you use them long enough? What kind of permutations or variations can come up? Because the way I look at it, I tell people, I'm like, well, right, and the alphabet only has 26 letters, and yet we keep doing new stuff with it.
Yeah, and every art form is like that for sure. I mean, in stand-up comedy, everybody I know started out sounding like somebody else, and you learn the vocabulary, like you said, as you go. And one thing that always kind of pops into my mind when thinking about this, Brent Weinbach, who is a mind-blowingly awesome comedian, I saw him do a set one night in Burbank, and he did a bit where he did a whole stand-up comedy bit without any actual words. The whole thing was done in gibberish.
Really?
And it was all timing, movement, and inflection, and it was
Brent
hilarious.
Weinbach?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Brent Weinbach.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, and I've only seen him do the bit once. I don't know if it's online anywhere or whatever, but it was we were dying on the floor laughing, and I was like,
that's great.
I was struck with the realization that oh my gosh, it doesn't matter what we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, think about the Marx Brothers. One of the great sequences in the Marx Brothers is Harpo and Groucho in the mirror scene.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That people still do that.
Yep.
They still do that routine. That's an interesting variation. I mean, obviously he's working within that trope of the same one that Groucho or Harpo either picked up, or they may have made it up. I doubt it, but they may have. That silent skit. That's so even there, you're working within some kind of vocabulary there, but his ability to pump out some kind of variation on it, that's someone who understands his vocabulary and knows what to do with it.
Yeah, and in his case, he is an extremely non-traditional stand-up comic to begin with,
cool.
And so it was really a rip on the rest of us who are traditional stand-up comics.
Cool.
It was one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, and also dismaying because I realized that what's coming out of my mouth really doesn't matter as long as I say it the right way.
Yeah, and I think you can take heart at that, because I think that's a little bit the same way with art or music. I mean, there's notes coming out, right? There's words coming out. There's ink lines getting put on the paper, but it's what you do with it.
Yep.
And that is a fascinating component, I would imagine, for any art. But I think that's because even there's a vocabulary to the line, in a comic strip.
Sure.
a very cursive line, a thin line, a pen line. So it really isn't. It's you're putting down lines, but what are you doing with them? That's a great way of looking at it, for me at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been great. So the main place to see your comics, I believe, is piratemikecomics.com. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'm going to be rebooting the site soon, so ideally there will be a more navigatable way to view the strips. But if you want to really view the strips, the top part of it isn't as useful as just going to the main blog scroll and going vertical, and you can probably catch them all that way.
Yeah, I spent probably about 45 minutes whipping through them last night, and I had a great time. It was a nice way to relax after my gig. So
good.
That was
I'm
very
glad you
cool.
enjoyed it. That's excellent.
Yeah, this has been super fun, Brad. I'm really glad we got to chat. And is there anything I didn't ask you that you want everybody to know about?
There are a lot of great comics on Go Comics right now Go Comics, I think, is finally starting. They've got a couple of editors in there who are really looking to some of the more progressive strips that aren't in the sense the usual 3 to 4 panel strips. And that's all. It's great stuff. There's a lot of great stuff happening in comic strips right now, and I think there are also some great strips out there that still use the old 3-4 panel format. And if people get the chance, I really highly recommend looking at the Go Comics site and then poking around in Sherpa, because every now and then you get somebody in Sherpa, you get some wild stuff that, like you were saying with the comedians, really makes you rethink what you're doing and why you're doing it and how you're doing it. And it gives you a whole new viewpoint on comics. So I really recommend it.
Fantastic. Well, all that will be linked up on the show notes, including PirateMikeComics.com and everything else. And like I said, Brad, this has been super fun. I always like to talk drawing because I'm terrible at drawing. So
no. See, doodle. Seriously, I always tell people this. It's like hating your own fingerprint. You know, whatever you doodle, that's your drawing style, and you just keep doing it, and you will not get worse at something you do every day.
That's true. Very true. Very true. Well, thanks a lot, buddy. We will talk again soon.
Phil. Real pleasure. Thanks a lot.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And there it is, friends. That is my interview with Brad Perri, creator of Pirate Mike. And you can find all of his comic strips and other good stuff at PirateMikeComics.com. If you enjoyed that interview, I hope you might do a little something to support the show. You can do a couple things. If you just go to underthecrossbones.com/support, you can drop a little donation in the PayPal box there. You don't even need PayPal to do it. It's very easy. And you can donate whatever you like, and that's very cool. There's an Amazon banner there. If you just click on that Amazon banner, buy yourself something nice, and I get a little commission off of that. And that's very helpful as well. Or if you'd like to be a sponsor of the show, like Southern Yellow Pine Publishing or Naufragant or anybody else, it's very cheap to do. You can be a sponsor of this show, and I will run an ad. I will talk about your thing. That is hopefully piratey based, because that's what my listeners like, obviously. Right? Right. Okay. And you know what, friends? There are pirates out there. There are real life pirates, and they are not pirates that dress nicely or carry a sword or have a parrot or say "R." They are pirates that wear sweatpants and eat Cheetos and sit in front of a laptop and steal your identity. And I don't want that to happen to you. Because identity theft is now like the second most reported crime in crime. From what I hear, second most reported. That's the second biggest crime in the world is identity theft. And I've dealt with it. It's a drag. You don't want to have to do it. Here's how you avoid it. You get yourself a LifeLock membership. It's cheap. And LifeLock will not only make sure that your stuff isn't out there, your identifying details are not out there in the dark parts of the web. But if they do find them out there, they will help you fix it. And that's really the big part. They will help you fix the identity theft problem should you run into it. So it's real cheap, and you can get 10% off a membership. All you have to do is go to underthecrossbones.com/lifelock and click the Start Your Membership button, and you will get 10% off a membership. It's just that good, and it's just that easy, and you should do it. I have a free ebook for you. It is Alexander Exquemelin's Pirates of Panama, or the Buccaneers of America, whichever title you prefer. And it is a seminal work in pirate history that if you haven't read it, you should definitely read it. And I have a free ebook version of it for you. All you have to do is go to underthecrossbones.com and click on free ebook in the menu. Or if you're out and about and all you have is your phone, you can text the word pirate and your email address to 94253. Text the word pirate and your email address to 94253. Make sure that you include your email address, because that's how I have to deliver it to you. And it makes it much easier that way if I actually know what your email address is. So today we got some comedy, we got some music. Today we have comedy from Saul Trujillo, who is a comic out of Sacramento. Very funny. He and I just did a gig together recently, and I think you're going to enjoy his stuff a lot. And then we're going to hear a song from a musical artist called Peter Turns Pirate. And that's obviously a Peter Pan reference, right? And it's industrial music. It's really good stuff. He's an English guy that I read about recently on some online review of his work, and I thought it was really cool, and I thought I would play some of his stuff. So we're going to hear some Peter Turns Pirate, and that is a song called... Don't you like how I'm prepared for these things? That is a song called Starving for Attention. That's what it's called. It's a song called Starving for Attention from Peter Turns Pirate. All right, let's get into it. Some comedy from Saul Trujillo, and then music from Peter Turns Pirate.
Glad to hear you guys seem happy. I'm not that happy, guys. I've been trying to get in the relationship game lately. It's kind of hard when you look like a baby and a lesbian at the same time. Like, I know what the hell I look like, all right? I'm either at the wrong or right kind of bar, depending on your perspective on things. Having Big Bird for the gang offer me these drinks, making me these propositions. Like, I don't know what scissoring is. But whatever, lady, it's action. Let's do this shit. Either that or I'm walking the streets during the day, getting approached by 40-year-old white dudes in a van, having them trying to coax me in with some candy. They're like, look, man, I'm not even is that a Snickers? And ice cream Snickers, I'm all yours, Coachies. Save the chloroform and the speech, I'm coming willingly. Let's go. Sugar daddy, guys, it's lettuce. Get one thing out of the way right now. At the end of the show, we're like, hey, great show. Don't great show, big guy me. Good show, big guy. My kind isn't like that. We don't like that at all. Good job, little Fluffy. Oh, I'll punch you right in the throat. That's not me. I'm fat. I know I'm fat. And if I've accepted that I'm fat, you should be able to accept it without getting all weird and quiet on me right now. But that being said, I know there are certain places I can't go to because of my comedy fat forefathers. Like, I know I can never go to a buffet ever again without people automatically assuming I'm going to go hard in the paint every time. Sometimes I want a salad. Not 90% of the time, but sometimes. Seriously, every time I go to a buffet, I'm just tired of walking in and having people just put their tables and have them sit their tables around like they're Jeeps. And then them pretending like they're on safari looking at me like I'm some kind of lion about to take out a gazelle. Only lazier because it's mashed potatoes. Seriously, every time I walk into a buffet, I feel like I'm in an old Western film. I walk in, everybody's looking at me because I'm the stranger in town. I have to tell this family of white people I don't want any trouble. I'm going to take this mac and cheese and move on to the next town. Macaroni and cheese dressing.
We're starving. We are starving.
And there it is, friends. That's our show for today. Thank you for listening in. If you want to see more Pirate Mike, you can go to piratemikecomics.com and visit Brad Perri over there. If you would like to hear more from comedian Saul Trujillo, go to comedianwebsitename.com. Yeah, that's his website. That's Saul Trujillo, comedianwebsitename.com. And if you want to hear more from Peter Turns Pirate, go to facebook.com/Peter Turns Pirate. And all those links will be on the show notes at underthecrossbones.com/031. Plus music and videos. I'm going to put some Brent Weinbach in the show notes since we were talking about him. All sorts of good stuff. Thank you again for listening. Thanks for telling your friends. Keep leaving those iTunes reviews. And I will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.